Hello and welcome. Today we'll look at product versioning. We will try to understand why versioning is required and why it's important for you to understand versioning as a product manager. We'll also try to explore a popular versioning scheme called semantic versioning or SEMver. So why do we require versioning? Well, one simple reason why we require versioning is it helps our customers to understand what is the snapshot of the product that is currently being used, that the customer is currently using. So if you look at something like, say, Windows, there is a version associated with it. You're either running Windows 10 or Windows 11, right? And even something like a Mac has a version associated with it. Or even if you go to an app store and try to download a particular app, you see that there is a particular version associated with that app. So the version indicates to the customer, gives a clear indication to the customer as to what is the version of the, or what is the snapshot of the product that the customer is using. Now, it could be argued that not everything needs a version, right? Which is true because most of the online products that you see, most of the websites that you see don't have a version. So, for example, if you look at Google, what is the version of Google you're using? Well, you don't know. Does Facebook have a version? Probably not. I mean, at least not what you know, right? Does Amazon have a version? Probably they don't expose it. But the fact is that there is still a notion of versioning. It's just that it's not exposed to the customer. And so why do you need this versioning in the first place? Well, it so happens that when you build an application or an online service, there is always going to be multiple versions of that application that is currently being worked on within the organization. So you could have a production version of the app, which currently customers are using. You could have the version of the app that is being tested by your QA team uh, simultaneously, right? At the same time, you could have a version of the app that is being built by a development team. Similarly, as a product manager, you could probably be discovery, product discovery, feature discovery for a completely new version of the app that might not show up within the next by the next few months or so. So what happens now is there is multiple versions of the app that is actually being built within the organization. And one of the reasons you need versioning is to be able to help you to precisely refer to what particular version of the app that you're currently using and currently building, and being able to communicate that with your internal stakeholders. Um, so one of the popular schemes when it comes to versioning is called semantic versioning or SEMver. What does SEMver stand for and how does it work? So in SEMver, what you do is a version is consists of three numbers, and they are separated by a dot. So you have number one, dot number two, dot number three. And this is a very popular versioning scheme. I'm sure you must have seen in multiple places. But what do these numbers mean, right? The first number is called the major version. The second number is called the minor version. And the third number is called the patch version. So there is a major version of the software, the minor version of the software, and the patch version of the software, right? So now what does the major version stand for? Well, whenever there is a significant change in a piece of software, the major version is supposed to change. And most of the times, a major version change means that there is some incompatibility with that piece of software. So for example, you have Windows 10 and Windows 11. Um, One of the things that has happened when Windows 10 moved to Windows 11 was there were some incompatibilities that got introduced, right? So for customers to understand that, hey, this is a different version of Windows that I'm currently using, there is a distinction between the two versions, which is two major version numbers, which is Windows 10 and Windows 11. And now there is something no, there is something called a minor version, or the notion of a minor version. What is that? Well, minor versions represent small increments or small changes to functionality. One of the key aspects of minor versions is that minor versions are always compatible with previous versions, which means that you could have Windows 11.1 and 11.2, but when you're upgrading or when you're updating your 11.1 to 11.2, you expect a few functionalities to get a few new functionalities or features, but you don't expect anything to break at all. And there is something called a patch version, which is even more minor than the minor version. So patch versions are essentially just bug fixes that you ship to customers. No new functionalities added for patch versions. So what are the best practices given this, given this versioning scheme? What are the best practices for product managers, right? Now, the one of the few things that you need to remember is you always need to version your product, even if it is not exposed to customers, and which means that these versions are being internally used to refer to the snapshot of the product that you're going to ship, but you would never expose it to customers, right? And now, what typically happens in any fairly large organization is you'll have all your product artifacts linked to this version of the product. By that, I mean all your bugs, all your enhancement, your tickets, tasks, documentation. Everything is linked to this a particular version of the product. And whenever possible, try to use an industry standard versioning scheme like SEMVer. What we'll see is in the next video, we'll look at another scheme, another popular scheme that is used for versioning software products. So that's all for today's session. Let me know if you have some questions. You can put those questions in the comments below. Thank you.